Good morning, everyone. I know this speaker's time is very valuable and we don't want to miss any opportunity to ask questions, so we'll try and start on time. Welcome to the 53rd meeting of the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. The meeting is being televised. Today the committee is studying the supplementary estimate C21617, Vote 1C under Parliamentary Protective Service. We are pleased to have us today the Honourable Jeff Regan, Speaker of the House of Commons. He is accompanied by officials from the Parliamentary Protective Service, Superintendent Mike O'Byrne, Acting Director, and Robert Graham, Administrative Personnel Officer. And just so the committee members know, the main estimates have also been tabled, so we can do that at some time soon. So, Mr. Speaker, the floor is yours. Thank you for, I know you're a very busy man, so we're delighted that you're here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm delighted to be back at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee, where I spent some quality time while I was the Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader between 2001 and 2003. So it's nice to be back again, this time, of course, answering questions or trying to instead of asking them. I'm pleased to be here along with Superintendent Mike O'Byrne, the Acting Director of the Parliamentary Protective Service, and Mr. Robert Graham, the Acting Corporate Services Officer for the Protective Service. We're also joined by other members of the PPS management team, Superintendent Alain Laniel, the officer in charge of operational support, Inspector Marie-Claude Côté, the officer in charge of operations, and Melissa Rusk, Executive Officer and Senior Advisor to the Director. Since its creation on June 23, 2015, the PPS has made significant progress in unifying the Parliament Hill physical security mandate and in establishing itself as a single and independent parliamentary entity. Over the course of fiscal year 2016-2017, its first full financial cycle, the PPS has implemented a series of new operational and organizational initiatives while addressing the complexities of the evolving external security environment. In September
2016, a supplementary budget request of $7 million was approved to support ongoing costs for Parliament Hill security, one-time initial costs for the launch of resource optimization initiatives, and the requirements stemming from organizational structure developments. In support of PPS's determination to build on the progress to date, which includes further strengthening its capacity to support an autonomous security service throughout the precinct and the grounds of Parliament Hill, I am here today to present PPS's Supplementary Estimates C and Main Estimates requests.
By providing an overview of the PPS Supplementary Estimates C request, which totals $2.39 million, including a total voted budgetary requirement of $2.3 million, and a statutory budgetary component of $90,000 to fund the employee benefit plan. The total voted budgetary requirement is related to funding for an operational contingency fund and additional administrative requirements. The PPS is seeking an operational contingency fund in the amount of $2.1 million, which will be used for operational requirements not anticipated earlier in the year, including security for the Canada 150 celebrations on December the 31st, 2016, and for future requirements that may occur prior to the fiscal year end. En plus du fonds du prévoyant.
In addition to the operational contingency fund, $200,000 is being requested to fund administrative requirements. This includes funding for payroll, language training, and employee assistance program services that the House of Commons administration is providing to PPS on a cost recovery basis throughout the 2016-2017 fiscal year. due to external labor relations factors, including delays associated with the negotiations surrounding the future collective bargaining units, PPS is requesting funds to cover the anticipated additional external legal services.
The interpreters, who I know do a fabulous job, but it can be challenging with someone who speaks as quickly as I do. Let us now turn our attention to the PPS main estimates request for 2017-2018, which totals $68.2 million. This includes a voted budget component of $62.1 million and a $6.1 million statutory budget requirement for the Employee Benefits Plan. This 2017-2018 main estimates request represents a $6.1 million increase over the PPS's 2016-2017 main estimates submission. In addition to its permanent voted budget of $56.3 million, which was approved in the 2016-17 main estimates and established as a result of Bill C-59, the PPS is seeking an additional $6.1 million in permanent funding to support the ongoing implementation of security enhancements and to further stabilize its organizational structure. Several reviews were conducted following the events of October 22, 2014, resulting in 161 recommendations for improving security on Parliament Hill. The PPS received temporary funding approval in September 2016 to launch its Mobile Response Team, or MRT, initiative. The implementation of this initiative will address a significant number of these 161 recommendations and enhance the PPS's overall response capacity. The PPS is requesting permanent funding in the amount of $1.2 million to further implement and sustain the needs of this initiative. To support the continuation of the Senate's previously approved security enhancement initiatives, additional funding in the amount of $787,000 will be transferred to the PPS on April 1, 2017, given its direct alignment with PPS's mandate. Le SPP demande également.
PPS is also seeking permanent funding in the amount of $3 million to stabilize the protective posture in the newly reopened Wellington building and to uphold pre-existing third-party security agreements throughout the precinct. Given the anticipated increase in the number of visitors to the precinct and grounds of Parliament Hill throughout Canada's 150th anniversary celebrations, a total of $400,000 in temporary funding is required to support the costs of the baggage screening facility at 90 Wellington through 2017-2018. This renewed temporary funding request will not only enhance the visitor experience, but will also enable PPS to evaluate this facility's effectiveness, feasibility, and long-term sustainability. This results in a cumulative request of $5.3 million for previously approved and new security enhancement initiatives throughout the parliamentary precinct and the grounds of Parliament Hill.
Funding request for operational enhancement initiatives, PPS is seeking a permanent increase of $886,000 to fund a series of corporate service requirements. This includes funding for full-time communications resources to support the PPS's internal and external messaging, along with the funding that is necessary to fulfill its existing service-level agreements with the House Administration for the provision of human resources, as well as information and technical services. In closing, the PPS remains steadfast in its commitment to operational excellence through the provision of professional physical security services throughout the parliamentary precinct and the grounds of Parliament Hill. Something I think is very important. It's certainly very important to me in terms of the security of everyone who works here and all those who visit us here. To further enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of its service delivery model, the PPS will focus on the ongoing implementation of existing and new resource optimization initiatives, the identification of opportunities to leverage innovation, and a strengthened commitment to collaboration with its various parliamentary partners. This concludes my overview of the PPS Supplementary Estimate C and 2017-2018 main estimates request, Mr. Chairman. I look forward, and we look forward, to the questions that are to come.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Informative as always. You did make some comments on the main estimates, which is great background, but today the committee's only has been prepared for the supplementary estimates of the PPS. So that will be our topic of questioning, I hope, and we'll hopefully have you back soon for the main estimates. Mr. Graham.
It's a pleasure to be here after having worked for you in this conversation. I want to understand a bit more about PPS. I was here before the merger, as were you, and I would like to understand administratively what the changes were, because when PPS was created, it was no longer part of the House of Commons directly. So what is the administrative structure for pay and benefits, all these things now? Is there a completely separate organization for that from the House of Commons? Has that all been recreated for the PPS?
Well, I was speaking earlier about some of the things whereby the funding will be provided to the House of Commons administration to pay for the services it provides to the PPS, like human resources, for example. So there are a variety of things whereby the House of Commons, since it has existing setups, existing administration that deals with this kind of stuff, it's obviously more efficient to, rather than creating a whole new set for the PPS, to share that. I'll let Superintendent O'Byrne continue to fill you in further and be more accurate, I'm sure.
Well, we're all about details of Procedure House Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Certainly the coming together of all the three entities to form the PPS saw the coming together of the operational resources predominantly, and that made us having to turn ourselves to looking at optimizing how best to create the behind-the-scenes operational support services and or administrative or corporate services. So, as mentioned in the Speaker's opening remarks, there are some service level agreements that are currently underway with the House of Commons to provide HR services and IT support functions. So, and that's in the vein, as mentioned, to avoid duplication and to ensure that existing services are optimized and maximized.
Is there anywhere in PPS where there are now officers serving where civilians had been in those positions prior to the merger?
If civilians had been previously?
Yeah, or any administrative structure, anywhere in the structure of PPS that had been run by civilians before the merger of PPS that is now run by uniformed officers?
We have operational personnel operating in operational units, and one of the examples that I can give is, for example, we have training units and we have planning units, and these personnel are made up of our operational folks that came together from all three previously separate entities, and but they are not in administrative roles per se. They are in operational functions, which means they are the ones that are at the range on a daily basis. They're the ones that are deploying the actual kinetic training exercises. From a planning perspective, the integrated planning unit is also made up of our operational personnel. They're the ones that attend all the operational meetings, the planning mechanisms with internal and external partners, and they operationalize the plan on the actual day of the event, and they're on the ground with our operational folks and with our commanders. As far as other positions, let's say if you're referring to purely administrative functions like corporate functions and things like that, perhaps I'll turn it over to Mr. Graham here, but that's not what we don't have personnel actively involved in those administrative-only positions.
No, we're talking about finance, HR. I can't think of any instance where a constable is working in an administrative capacity right now.
Okay. Do we have enough PPS officers on the floor right now? Are we fully staffed?
Defer the question. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I said, do we have enough PPS officers on the floor today? Are we fully staffed?
Are we fully staffed? Well, we're currently in, the PPS will always continue to use all its existing resources, and distribute them throughout our area of operation to maximize them and, in accordance with our established priorities. And these are to continue ensuring an open and accessible Parliament, and combining that with the very real need for security. That said, we have to be very nimble in our approach to future demands, and we're in constant consultations with internal, external partners to determine where exactly that resource level is, and that continues every day.
I think it's valuable to understand that it takes time. If there's a decision to add some people, for example, in view of such circumstances, that takes time. In fact, it takes as much as 10 months from the time you start saying, okay, we've got to prepare for this, right, to the process whereby you select people, train them, etc., right, get them equipped, etc. So that's a long period, and so the PPS is constantly adjusting as a result of that, and dealing with changes. Someone gets sick, or someone gets another job, or there are changes, and so it's a period. I think it's a situation of constant adjustment, and sometimes that, for instance, leads to overtime. But the objective really is to try to make sure that the staff is there as necessary, so you don't have to have people doing much overtime.
Do you have a sense of how many people are doing overtime these days on the floor?
Roughly give us an idea.
Well, if you're looking for an absolute numerical value, I don't have that information with me today. I could provide that at a later time.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
But if I could, how many people are doing overtime?
On a daily basis.
Yes, we can provide that information to you in a follow-up document, or but. On a daily basis, we have to be responsive to the daily events that are occurring every single day on Parliament Hill and various areas around the precinct. That, combined with the external factors like the global threat environment, always positions us to always have to be very responsive. Now. That includes, if I can take a step back, certainly after the events of October 22nd, there was a posture change on Parliament Hill, and we're looking at ensuring that we continue to resource those changes effectively and optimize every resource as best as possible.
So is there any?
Sorry, David.
Okay.
Time's up.
I may have to continue later. Thank you.
Mr. Schmale.
Sharon, thank you all for joining us here today. Going over your report in the contingency fund, the amount of $2.1 million, which will be used for operational requirements that were not anticipated earlier in the year, including security for Canada 150th celebrations. So I'm assuming, obviously, this has been planned for years, and you've been looking at all kinds of scenarios. Has there anything? And I know I recognize you can't go into too much detail, but has there been other challenges that have come up that have resulted in these additional funds being put aside?
Well, every year is different, and things come up that you may not know in advance of that year, for example, that you have to prepare for. And obviously last year, for example, we had the visit of President Obama, which led to additional expense. What other kinds of events will happen during the course of this year that we don't know about yet? Good question, but I think it's important to be prepared for that. Anything else you need to add to that?
Thank you.
Okay. And the funds being set aside for the baggage screening machine, that includes staff as well, or is that just for the machine requirements?
That's that.
It does include the staff as well, sir.
It doesn't. So, just out of curiosity, more than anything, obviously with 150th coming up and a whole bunch of things, will there be more? The use of overtime be used on a more regular basis, given the fact that we're expecting more, I would assume, more visitors around Parliament Hill in the area? Will overtime be used? Obviously, you can't hire more officers just for a short period, or maybe you can.
Well, I don't think it's not a plan to temporarily increase the size of the force just for, for instance, the time around July the 1st or the course of the summer, for example. However, for large events, we cooperate with other police forces like the Ottawa Police who supplement, or the RCMP who can supplement, and I'll let Mike add to that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's correct. We have a good understanding of the events that will be taking place in our area of operation in and around Parliament Hill. However, we're always in constant discussions with the partners on this internally and externally to really get a good understanding of the scope and the magnitude of them, and this will inform on our personnel requirements. And as Mr. Speaker mentioned, we do call upon some partners to assist us when and as required.
Now, obviously, with a bunch of the tourists walking around, they're not always in the right spot and wandering and what have you. And obviously, that's going to have to be dealt with as people converge. Also, what has come up in previous meetings is access to the building for MPs, for senators, for staff. Is that still something that you have made a priority in ensuring that access is there and privileges are met?
Absolutely, and it is part of the training of members on an ongoing basis so that they understand the privileges, for instance, of members of Parliament and the importance of them getting to where they need to be, as well as for their staff to be able to work on the Hill and within the precinct. Anything else to add to that?
Just one final point, that is certainly our main effort on a daily basis, and we ensure that we emphasize that as part of any of our operational plans, that we include contingency plans in the event that, let's say there are many visitors, let's say if there's a lower drive, potentially a lower drive blockage of the street, we have contingency plans in place to try to deal with those, yes.
Sorry, a key point, that's made is to understand how important it is for members of Parliament to be able to do the things required to act on behalf of their constituents, which is what it's all about.
Absolutely. So, are there any, building on that, are there any challenges that the PPS has encountered in their planning? Is there issues that you may not have been able to kind of find a solution for? Anything at all? Everything's moving smoothly?
Well, I think if I can speak in general terms, I think as far as challenges go, I think one of our own ongoing challenges remains the ensuring the integration, the seamless integration of all the three previously separate entities. To ensure that we're able to provide a world-class security service. That includes ensuring the integration of, again, the cultural integration of all our folks. We've had some great initiatives in the last while to deal with those challenges. We've since the commissioning of the 180 Wellington building, we have our folks that are beginning to co-locate there, which has led to combined and integrated briefings, the rapid exchange of information, which is critical for an entity such as ours, or any organization really. I think another one of our challenge perhaps is external pressures or external points that we may, although we're constantly trying to be nimble and responsive to these, but they include, as Mr. Speaker was referring to, the Canada 150 events that are coming, the requirements to ensure we're positioned to respond to LTVP pressures, and again, to be responsive to the very real global threat environment. So these are challenges that we keep at the forefront of our attention every day.
Sure. Now, did the events of this past weekend, did that prove as kind of a training or an observation opportunity for you with the crashed ice going on just off Parliament Hill?
Were you in it?
What's that? I was not participating in that. I would like to think
Sticking to running, right?
Exactly. Did that provide an opportunity to see what it would look like when people are in mass numbers around Parliament Hill trying to get a various view of what you could be facing as we get into the summer months?
Certainly it gave us another glimpse into what we can expect moving forward as certainly as the summer months come and as we move towards Canada Day, which is promising to be a grand event. Specifically to the Red Bull crashed ice event, it unfolded without any incident, and that's largely in part to the great cooperation that exists between the PPS, the Police of Jurisdiction, Ottawa City Police, and the RCMP. So these three entities were all involved in the pre-planning phase. Certainly in the execution phase of the event, there were some. It was a kind of a multi-jurisdictional effort, and that's a model that we continue to build on and learn. Every event we learn, we take best practices and we incorporate them in future events. So certainly that's positioned us for future successes. Yes.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Christofferson.
Thank you very much, Chair and Mr. Speaker. Good to see you, sir, and your delegation. If I can, I'd like to just touch on the new screening process. I assume that's been covered in some of this. As you know, there's been some serious concerns raised about this whole new issue. And I just want to draw attention to your remarks, Speaker, where you, page 1 at the bottom in your last paragraph, you refer to support an autonomous security service. And you and I in camera have had discussions about just how autonomous this is. And if I get time, I'll come back to that because it's anything but. However, I would like to ask you perhaps just what is the current status of the suggested new screening process, sir?
Well, there's two kinds of screening. Right? There's a screening that we do as people arrive in buildings like this one, and there's the screening of personnel who are here on an ongoing basis. And of course, both are important. Both have a role. At the same time, it's important that we respect certain institutions, like, for example, the role of the media, and work out arrangements that make sense from all perspectives.
But if I can, sir, that's one of the two areas that have jumped up so far is, of course, the media themselves through the press gallery, their organized representative body, and also people who work for members here or may in the future. And they're raising serious concerns, and it ties into this autonomous, because once we start getting into anything with the RCMP, it is not autonomous at all, and nobody suggests the RCMP is, and yet they're responsible for the security that's here in this building, and we still have this facade that somehow it's an independent security service, when at the end of the day, in a crisis, when the rubber hits the road, the Prime Minister will dictate to the RCMP Commissioner, who will then issue orders that will be followed. And if they have time, I'm sure they'll loop in the speakers, but if it's a big enough emergency, sir, and we've had some of these discussions in camera, which I can't divulge, but that leads to so then now what we've got is, the reason I'm raising that, sir, is that once we start bringing in the press gallery, the free press, and we see the issue roiling away south of us, and so, you know, defending the right of the press in a free democracy, and so who decides what the threshold is going to be as to who gets accredited? And so now we've linked the ability for the press to be in the building to do their job and the ultimate control of the security service that's going to decide whether or not they're entitled to a badge to work here. So can you help me and help others understand why this shouldn't be a concern when it certainly seems like it is?
Well, I've certainly had discussions on this topic. I must say, though, that there are, you referred to some of the conversations we've had during in-camera meetings, and some aspects of this, of course, would have to be in camera. And I think that Superintendent O'Byrne is probably better placed to make the assessment of which comments might fit into which category in that sense. So I'm going to let him respond to your question, if I may. Absolutely. Thanks a lot, he says.
It rolls downhill, you know.
Well, thank you, sir. I think you've brought up quite a few points, and if I may, I'll try to address each one.
Thank you.
Because I do believe that while there's some linkages, I think there are some aspects of them that are completely separate. Now, in regards to you know, the involvement of the RCMP in the PPS, while again we could probably expand on this in another forum. The amendments to the Parliament of Canada Act and the subsequent MOU was very deliberate in ensuring that the trilateral governance was in place, which ensures the rights and privileges are absolute, are absolute, and you know, there is no there's no conceivable let's say conceivable, let's say, environment where you know, the director of the PPS would be asked to contravene an existing piece of legislation. Now, I think if I can tie that into your comments about the, you made a comment about the press and the security clearances there. I will say to that you know, the RCMP is simply a service provider in that regard. And I think if we, you know,
sorry, if I might, sorry to interrupt, I don't mean to be rude. But the criteria for what would be acceptable in terms of security, who makes that decision? Who will make that decision? And by the way, I don't accept any of this, that there's this independence and all that. We've been through this. I'd love to do it in public, to go through the actual command and control and who does what. And so at the end of the day, I think it's very clear that, that King Charles would be thrilled with this kind of a setup. Let's just put it that way. And I can only hope that someday Parliament takes back its autonomous control.
Well, let me tell you that I don't forget William Lenthal and what he said to Prince Charles. In fact, it's something that I actually very often quote because, as you may know, the face of William Lenthal, Speaker Lenthal, is in the ceiling of my office. So he looks down upon me and reminds me often of the role of the importance of the autonomy and independence and authority of the House of Commons in relation to the executive. So just since you mentioned King Charles, I couldn't resist.
Oh, fair enough, fair enough. But let's hope we return to a day where Parliament actually has sovereign autonomy over its own security services, which at this second we do not. So if you would continue, please. Who sets the criteria to decide whether or not a journalist is allowed to conduct their profession here on the Hill? How will that happen?
Well, it's actually not the PPS, that's the Corporate Security Office. So you might want to have us come back sometime when I have Mr. McDonnell with me.
How does one find out how they set it, and where is the input to decide whether or not the thresholds are fair?
Well, and in fact, there are discussions going on right now between the Corporate Security Office and the Press Gallery to work out what those rules should be, and I think we're moving in a good direction in that regard, as I think you'll hear.
Okay,
Thank you. Time.
It goes so fast. Thank you for your answers.
Ms. Tassi.
Chair, and thank you for your presence here today. I'm new to this committee, so if I'm asking some basic questions, I apologize for that, but that's just going to help me get up to speed. First, what I'd like to say is just to commend the security team. They're absolutely fantastic. As a new member of Parliament, I have to tell you, I'm not only impressed with the professionalism, with the kindness, with the compassion of how they wish to take care of us and do take care of us. So I want to offer that commending to you and and all those responsible for the oversight of the security here. And in that same spirit, I want to also make sure that they are at the top of their game, that they are able to do the job that they are set out to do. And I have had some conversations, and it gets back to MP Graham's questioning with respect to overtime, with respect to fatigue levels of the security. So Superintendent O'Byrne, you mentioned, we started on the conversation, but then I think we got sidetracked a bit. With respect to, you mentioned this concept of fully staffed. So, and you've done research in that regard to determine what it takes. Do you have a number of the current officers or security officers that you have, and that the number you would need, because my understanding is that we need more based on the overtime hours, the number that you would need in order for you to be satisfied that you are fully staffed?
You're correct in that the overtime is always at the forefront of our concerns, and not only from a fiscal risk perspective, but it's a wellness concern for us as well. To that end, I'll mention that we've developed a multitude of wellness initiatives that are geared towards employee wellness, physical, mental health initiatives. So that is certainly at the forefront of our concerns. Now, from an overtime perspective and how that translates into our posture, as I mentioned, the coming together of the three separate entities, it was at a time when there were a multitude of security changes on Parliament Hill and on the grounds in the precinct, and as we progress to as we've come together as a separate as a security entity, we have had the opportunity, for example, to optimization at areas such as let's say the vehicle screening facility, where we continue to employ our defensive posture strategy there of multiple layers of security. That we've had some as I mentioned, optimization there when it comes to resourcing pressures. Now, to your question about the actual number, you'll be pleased to hear that we've just launched one of our training courses yesterday that sees our brand new recruit class starting its 9-week training course. So we're looking forward to having them join the force for the upcoming summer months. And this is, I mention that because this is an ongoing effort for us as we position ourselves as well for the 2018 LTVP pressures of the decommissioning of Center Block and also the ramping up of other areas.
Okay.
So
I can appreciate that, but I guess for me it's, do you have a number of people that you are looking to fill positions that are needed here with respect to the security? Is it 50? Is it 20? Is it 30? Do you have a number of people that you are looking so that you are, in fact, as you refer to, fully staffed? Vacancies, in other words, so that the overtime issue, and I appreciate the initiatives you're taking, but I guess my question is, why wouldn't you just hire people? Like, why aren't what's happening with respect to the hiring? And how many positions are you looking to fill to fill that gap so you don't have to rely on people for the overtime?
So what we're doing is to come to that number. What we're doing is we're because it's constantly in flux. We have an attrition rate that we deal with as well, but also an expansion rate that we foresee as being likely temporary. Again, as I mentioned, with the West Block commissioning sometime in 2018, we're looking forward to knowing what the final timelines are going to be.
Okay, so you don't have a number right now, but you're looking to add people. So now when you're adding people, you mentioned this training course, how many are you looking at? What would be ideal, and how many are in the training course?
Well, I would hesitate to give some. I'd be more than happy to give you some numbers, perhaps in another medium, and
Okay.
perhaps provide those to you
Okay.
in written form, if that's could be acceptable. However, we are looking to find that optimum balance to be able to ensure that our overtime is brought to a minimum in the not too distant future. We're under no illusion that I think we'll ever get to zero because of the external, sometimes unknowns that we have to be
Right,
responsive
yeah.
to. But again, I can provide those
Okay,
numbers
that would
to
be
you
great. That would
in
be
another
great.
forum if you mind.
And how many are in the training course that's going to start? How many are?
We have approximately 22 at this time.
22 will be undertaking, and at the end of it, are they all anticipated that they all end up going through the training course and then are ready to serve, or do some of them get dropped out because they don't pass, or?
We hope they all pass.
Our intention is to train them so that they're successful, and in some instances, we do have varying success rates. Yes.
Okay, so the average success rate, is it 90%? Is it, what would it be?
Again, those are the types of figures I'd be more than happy to provide outside of this medium, if you don't mind.
I know my time's almost up, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, but I appreciate your attention to this matter. I think it's a matter that's of concern. When I'm speaking, and I don't want to mention any names or anything, but with security, I don't want to see them overtaxed. I don't want to see them exhausted, not only for their own safety and wellness, but also for the safety of those that they're protecting. Thank you very much.
Okay, just before we go on to Blake, you've committed to get 3 things back to the committee, just for the record, so you could get them to the clerk. So one is the amount of overtime that's going on. Second is the number of fully staffed. You need to be fully staffed. And the third is the success rates in the training program. If you could get that to the clerk, then we will give it to the committee members. Mr. Richards.
Thank you. I've got a number of questions, so we'll see how we can do here. The first one that I wanted to ask about, you mentioned briefly in your opening remarks about this mobile response team initiative. I wonder if you could briefly, or maybe it's Mr. O'Byrne, could briefly give us a sense of what that team is and what that initiative is. Again, briefly, if you can.
Once again, I think this is an area where he's got a better idea than I do of what we should tell you and what we shouldn't in an open meeting. So
Fair enough.
So the Mobile Response Team Initiative is going to be a group of individuals that are going to be trained to respond to a broad spectrum of any event that can occur within our area of operation.
Okay.
And they're going to be operating amongst the existing forces.
Okay. I suspect that maybe you seem reluctant to give us much more information than that. Is that because of the nature of this meeting being a public meeting? Is that sort of the idea, or?
I think I would look very much forward to providing you further information on that, perhaps in a different medium. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Maybe we could set aside a couple minutes at the very end, Mr. Chair, to do that. Would that be possible? Is there any objection to that?
No one has any objection to that? Do the last 5 minutes in camera so we can have more discussion on that item? Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that, and we'll undertake to do that. Move to some other questions I had. You mentioned also in your opening remarks about the communication resources to support both internal and external messaging amongst the PPS. I think I can imagine what the internal messaging would be, but maybe just focus on the external messaging. Could you maybe give us some sense as to what type of services are being provided there for that funding?
Well, there are times when there are media inquiries about issues related to the security on the Hill, whether incidents have occurred or what have you, and where there is a need for there to be a response from the PPS itself, which it does in coordination with my office, and I suppose in coordination with the Speaker of the Senate's office, of course, as well.
So it'd be like a media relations officer that's been hired or something? Is that what we're speaking of then, or
Well,
someone that's dedicated a bit of their time to that? at
There's the
least?
media relations. Sometimes there's you need someone doing graphics for the internal media, the internal communications, for example. That kind of stuff.
Those types of things. Okay. Also, there was a mention in your opening remarks of $400,000 in temporary funding to support the baggage screening facility at 90 Wellington for 2017-2018. But it was mentioned as temporary funding. I'm wondering why temporary. Why was there is it felt that there's only a need for that funding for that period of time, and why would it not be a permanent need?
Over to you.
Thank you. We asked for that as a temporary measure because we're looking at re-examining that contract moving forward. We're looking forward to the commissioning of the Visitor Welcome Center in 2018, and that's another one of those initiatives that will inform us on how best to navigate this large baggage phenomenon that we have to deal with. So that's why we were asking as a temporary measure, because we look forward to revisiting that.
Okay, so essentially reevaluating it after that point in time and determining what the permanent needs would be is that, yeah, okay.
That's correct, sir.
Fair enough. Now, I guess along that same line, you mentioned in a response to an earlier question about the decommissioning of Center Block, and then obviously that coincides with a move to West Block, and that would have, expectations are still that would occur in 2018, my understanding. Whether that happens or not, we'll see, I guess. But regardless of when it happens, obviously you're doing some planning for that, and wondering if you have any sense as to what that is going to look like, what kind of challenges that will present, and what kind of costs that would present as well.
Just on the question of the timing, we are operating under the expectation of being in there in September of 2018, but I'm looking forward to a meeting before too long with the folks from Public Services and Procurement, from officials from that department who actually have the custody of the building now, to determine when it will be handed over to the House of Commons administration, because there are things that we have to do once that happens. They hand it over to us in a certain state, and then we have to get it into the readiness state, which is a different thing, and it's going to require some months to do that. So I'm anxious to know what date they're going to assure us that they're going to hand it over to us.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that doesn't answer the question, I don't think. That was actually part of his preamble, not part of his question. So that would.
But would we be able to allow Mr. Byrne, if that was who was going to respond to that, to the rest of the remainder? Yeah.
So your question, I'm sorry, your question.
Well, sort of what I was asking was in regards to the decommissioning of Center Block, the move to West Block, what challenges that presents in terms of, I guess, operational challenges, and sort of what the planning and preparatory stages are for that, and what kind of costs you anticipate that might present in to meet some of those challenges.
West Block as well as
I know it's a fairly broad question, but
yeah. Absolutely, we're looking forward to knowing. We're in consultations with our partners on this to come to ground and get a better understanding of the timelines and what that'll entail. We're not sure if we can close Center Block down on a Friday and have West Block open on a Monday. We're still there may be a transition period there. We're going to be looking to get some further information on that. There's also the Government Conference Center, of course, that is at the forefront of our attention that we need to be mindful of. But as we get closer to 2018, we'll have a better idea of what our resourcing, our personnel pressures will be in. Will we have to maintain a fully operational Center Block concurrently with a fully operational West Block and Government Conference Center? Those are part of the unknowns that we hope will come clear in the remainder of this calendar year.
Okay, so it sounds like it might be a question for a future meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Ms. Sahota, and then we'll go in camera.
Hello. Thank you for being here today. I definitely want to reiterate what my colleague said. The PPS staff workers are incredible, do a we've all built relationships with them in the hallways over the time we've been here, and they do an outstanding, phenomenal job. Some of my questions, or a couple of my main questions, relate with the integration of communications. How is that going? How have you seen it change the efficiency or effectiveness of the force? Have there been complications with that? Additional costs? I know that in the last time you were here, we discussed it a little bit, that there would be added cost to integrating, that there has been. How is that working out? Do you find that there is smooth integration, or how often are the different departments communicating, Senate to House of Commons to RCMP?
Well, go ahead.
So this is happening on a daily basis now with the full integration of the security forces. There are fully integrated briefings in the morning, fully integrated communication strategies that the messaging is immediate, whether it's corporate messaging or whether it's operational messaging. We have these on a daily basis, multiple times a day if required. To complement this for any kind of special events, we have notifications that are sent to all the personnel. And the distinction, you had mentioned the distinction between RCMP, House of Commons, and Senate. That distinction does not necessarily exist anymore in the previous form that we understood it to be prior to the PPS. You know, if I can use a crude analogy of a 33%, each entity seemed to have been operating with let's say 33% of the plan or 33% of the information. And now, with the creation of the PPS, it's the 100%. An operational plan will encompass every single aspect of an operational plan, 100% of it, whether it's happening anywhere on the precinct, and all security forces are advised of that. We are in constant communication with the Corporate Security Office and the Corporate Security Directorate. We work closely with them, again, multiple times a day or for any special event. So I have to say that the communication strategy, the operational communication strategy, we continue to ensure that it's seamless, and the corporate communication strategy continues as well to ensure it's seamless. As I mentioned, the co-locating of personnel at 180 Wellington has contributed now to further integration and increased communication. So you know, we continue to refine our model every single time we possibly can with learned and best practices.
Mm-hmm. The increase that we're seeing in cost administratively, what is that a direct result of? I know you talked a little bit about HR, different areas. Is there a key area that you're seeing the increase in?
Yeah, sure. So when PPS was formed, a lot of the focus was on combining the operational individuals from the House, the Senate, and the RCMP. There were some elements that were perhaps not a great focus at the time, like a finance group, an HR group. So what we're doing from an administration side is, in order to leverage the good work that the House and the Senate are already doing, for instance, to implement a financial management system, we're leveraging the work that the House administration is doing. The payroll is actually being administered by a group that's been seconded to PPS, but leveraging existing systems that are already extant on the Hill. So there are some areas that it makes sense for us to leverage with our partners, but some areas, for instance, a warehouse, a receiving warehouse, it makes no sense for PPS to build its own. And so we're going to continue and leverage the partnerships we have with the House and the Senate administrations to take advantage of assets that are already there today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to suspend for about 30 seconds. We'll try and stay a couple minutes later. And I'm afraid everyone at the back will have to leave the room because we're going into camera. Thank you.